All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Full Circle. Quick announcement before we actually get into the grand finals recap and everything that we're promising for this segment. That we are in the new year when we have any new episodes. We're going to be moving to a new Twitch channel, Full Circle OSU, and a different Discord server as well. There's a couple of reasons for this, but I think the biggest one is just that Corsace is really inactive at the moment, and so we want to be able to run it out of a different server, put it on a YouTube channel with no hassle, all that good stuff. So that's a large reason behind it.
Yep, just gives us a lot
Yep.
more freedom going forward with how we want to manage everything, so that'll be nice.
Because we've been having a lot of fun with server perms for a
Yes,
long
we
That's one
have.
time.
thing. That's one thing.
So yeah, there's a pin message with links to the new Twitch channel that we'll be using going forward, along with the new Discord server we'll be using. You guys can join. There's also a command !new in the chat, which also has those same links. And we're looking to get more feedback, more suggestions about things coverage for episodes going forward. So if you want to make suggestions for future episodes, join the Discord and you are welcome to. But with that, shall we get into the rest of the episode?
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and just start off with the grand finals recap here. Um, this was it was a fun grand finals again this year, right? We had a couple of very good matches, especially the tiebreaker match between USA and Australia. USA, of course, winning that match in tiebreaker and then moving on to face Poland. Poland losing the first round of grand finals 7-1, but there were so many maps that were like 10,000 points in favor of the United States that during bracket reset, it felt like Poland were warmed up for the round again, and the USA kind of didn't find that extra boost that they needed to win a lot of close maps in the bracket reset. And so Poland winning OWC 2025, USA in second place, Australia in third.
Feel like it was so interesting how it felt like USA lost a lot of those close points in previous matches, and then the first set of grands they won all of them. They just won all of them.
Yeah.
Like they used up all of their good luck on close maps in in one round.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It was really interesting to see some of the pick and ban adaptations too between the Poland and the U.S. But we'll talk more about that later during the overall recap and the interviews. But then there was the Australia match as well, right? That was ended up being the most exciting one of the weekend. They kind of just traded points back and forth. And Emrek obviously put up a generational performance in that match, but I think the nerves got to them in tiebreaker, unfortunately.
Well, and one other thing is that I believe Emrek had been playing for like a few hours before that as well. So it wasn't just that he had like it wasn't just that he had you know, gotten nerves or anything. It was also that like all of the really tricky he had basically just lost stamina because he's been playing so long. So that's kind of a tough one if you're losing all of your stamina and you just can't play the game anymore really. That's rough.
Yeah, and kind of how it goes when you have to, it ends up being such a long match, best of 13, obviously. And then you have to play every single map as well. All of those speed maps certainly wear on your fingers when you don't get a break. I don't think it's so bad if you get like a map or two to rest them, but MREC didn't have that, and it certainly affected them, obviously, at the end of the match, like you mentioned. So. It is unfortunate, but it's once again they made it to tiebreaker just like they did last year against the U.S. And placed top three. So clearly a very strong team. I think they did end up being the clear third that we kind of expected going into the tournament. And although I'm sure the loss stings, I think it's still a lot to be proud of for them. Other than
Kind
that,
of a brutal
I
way to
think
go out, though.
it
Still a
is,
brutal way
yeah.
to go out.
is it ever. Other than that, unless you guys have anything else to add, we will probably leave it there for now. We're going to have Hubba and possibly Ledin joining shortly for kind of a overall tournament recap. So we'll kind of go a little bit more in depth on the grand finals matches during the overall review.
Yeah. So
Sounds-
we I believe okay, I now have Hubba's cam, so give me just a second to get some setup done. If you guys don't mind doing a little bit of stalling here for some camera setup, because one downside of
we can do some
having
stalling.
having people join right beforehand is I literally just can't set up the
You're
cameras
not
in time.
prepared.
Sorry guys.
Yeah.
You're good. Look,
Yo,
let's
but
do some yapping then. What did you think
yo,
about the Malashevsky grand finals performance? Like I feel like I was slightly concerned. I'm like, obviously Malashevsky's the best player, but then like is scaling an issue? And as it turns out, it was not. Malashevsky absolutely popped off.
the only time that Malice gets skill capped is like the hardest 1v1 pool you've ever seen in your life type of situation. I think like you could argue he's gotten like skill capped at most in maybe like Corsai's closed grands against Emrek. Other than that, dude just really doesn't get skill capped. You know, and I feel like in OWC, like, yeah, there are some maps in certain skill sets that aren't his specialty, right? That maybe he would struggle on a bit. The super crazy late, grand final speed stuff. But other than that, I mean, he's just proven time and time again that he's able to play everything there is. So I feel like it was just never a concern about whether or not he'd scale well enough. And I think, we went into grand saying like Emrek might be the better individual player, but Malashevsky is close and has a better team from top to bottom. So I think that's kind of just how it ended up playing out anyway. He performed expectations, especially in the second set.
Yeah, I mean, even in the first set, I thought he was still
was
playing
good,
very
but-
well, right? It wasn't quite like absolutely ridiculous, but I mean, you even go back to just obviously your mind goes to the hidden one if you're thinking of like standout performances, but he was still averaging really, really high, outperforming anyone on the United States. Top scored half the maps that were played in that first set, despite Poland losing 7 of them, right? So, was still without a doubt the best player in the lobby, just not to the extent that he could influence the outcome of the match. Definitely did in the second set of grand finals, though. In bracket reset, definitely was the case that he was influencing the outcome of the
Dude, that
match
Hard
by
Rock
being that best
3
player in the
score,
lobby.
the Hard Rock 3 score in the second set, I was like, okay, this match is actually just over.
Yeah,
That was crazy.
I might be one of the best scores we've ever seen in OWC. Like, I know people always are going to talk about Burning Stars, like, oh, that's the best play in OWC, but like, unironically, I think this play is just better. No, like this pool, that map is just harder than Burning Star. I'm
Yeah, I don't
pretty sure
disagree.
that's
I mean, I
just
think
a
the pools
better
just get
play.
harder every year. Yeah, it might be. I mean, you can have some debate about it, but it's a very good play. Suffice it to say.
All right, well, we are going to go ahead and switch over and include Hubba in this one. So, welcome in to Hubba for this, as I also get rid of that. There we go.
Very nice.
Hey, man.
Yeah,
How's it
we're
going?
gonna be.
Good
How's
morning.
it going, everyone?
Good
Or
morning.
good afternoon, but it's always morning somewhere.
It's always morning.
Somewhere.
Exactly. Only 4 for now, because we had a last minute replacement, so Leiden might join us in 15, 20 minutes. But for now, we are running as 4. So we're going to do kind of more of an overall tournament recap. And personally, I wanted to start with the group stage, kind of see everybody's opinions about groups, because personally, I know at the start of the tournament, I was pretty skeptical about bringing back group stage, especially after seeing how group stage went in some other big tournaments that tried to implement it with some strange formats like Corsai's at the end there. But overall, I have to say, I ended up really enjoying the group stage. I thought it was really nice that more teams got a chance to get some OWC experience. And on top of that, making it top 40 instead of top 32, it's just a good source of motivation for new players from countries that don't usually qualify. So it's possible we'll see more players over the next couple of years motivated to kind of grind tournaments, try and make OWC, considering that they might actually have a chance of getting in instead of just never having any hope of qualifying.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like a team to shout out with regards to like teams that wouldn't have qualified in previous years but did pretty decently for themselves is Singapore in that 33 slot. Just would have barely made it out of the tournament without a group stage, but did pretty well in their group and got a few points in the main stage. I feel like that's a good shout for like potential for these teams in the future, especially a team like Peru who did phenomenal in the group stage but just like barely fell short but still got to show their chops. I feel like that's very important for future iterations of this tournament and just trying to see the countries on the come up.
I think the biggest thing for me that made groups work and normally in a way that they normally don't is splitting the teams. Like, I was super hesitant about the concept of groups because usually when you have groups, in this situation, for instance, you would have had like, oh, I don't know, let's say you would have had like China and Netherlands, but then you would have had like Uruguay and Greece or something, right? And the outcome is just predetermined and completely a foregone conclusion. But splitting it into the whole like challengers contenders thing, which as cheesy as the names are, it ended up making it a way more interesting portion of the tournament than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah,
Like that was like the
fully
entire
agree.
reason for the success.
Yeah, fully agree, because we actually got close matches in group stage instead of one-sided stomps for the entirety of group stage, which is what it would have mostly been if we didn't have that split, right? I mean, even within the split, right? Taiwan versus Denmark, for example, you have pretty one-sided stomps, right? Still going on. You have like Norway 5-0ing both Austria and Thailand in that group, right? Like there are a lot of matches where they are still one-sided matchups for sure. But at the very least, most of them are going to be somewhat competitive. And then you get groups like Group F, for example, where Uruguay is 2 maps away from going 2-0, right? They lost on tiebreaker twice to go 0-3. So 2 maps away from actually getting out of the group 2-1, alongside Turkey instead of Argentina. Like that is a really cool result to have. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. I will say I think the one like downside of this is obviously that we didn't get to see the top 8 teams in the tournament during the group stage at all. And I think a possible remedy for that for next year, as I know this is going to sound sad for teams like Peru and Portugal and Hong Kong this year or Greece, but like just do this but without top 40. Just do it with the top 32 teams from qualifiers. It's a potential way to, I think, include the top 8 teams and have it be still really interesting like this. Even if this format is unchanged for next year, I still think it's really solid, but
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because I don't disagree. It would be nice to see the top 8 teams. They're fun to watch, but at the same time, I don't necessarily know that we need like um another round of seeds 1 to 8 stomping seeds 32 to 24. The matches kind of go the same every single year, so in that sense, I kind of like excluding them from groups. But obviously, people still want to watch them play. So maybe you set up like a show match between some of the top teams during the group stage instead, if they're up for it, and that way you can still watch them play, but you actually get to watch some competitive matches rather than watching them absolutely run over the first week on pools that are just way too easy for them, like they do a lot of years. And the other point I wanted to bring up is like even with the splits, we saw in 6 out of 8 groups, it was just the top 2 seeds that got out, and one of the 2 where that wasn't the case was just seed 32 over 33. So generally pretty expected results. But then, within the 2 teams that got out, there was some variance in like, a lot of teams, the second seeded team got out first in the group. And even then, the matches within the group were closely, as mentioned. So it still made the groups really interesting, even if the end results were mostly expected.
Yeah, and even then, I don't I see from like a player perspective why we would need those top 8 teams playing just to keep the activity up, but I also think that that could be like up to player discretion, have them run some scrims on the back end or something. Just I really like the fact that the focus is on these lesser known teams during these group stage weekends. And personally, I was kind of okay with missing out on those top teams just to get some new looks at the new guys.
Yeah, I think like the only other complaint I saw about group stage was some teams ended up having to play meaningless games, you could say, because they found themselves eliminated after their first two. But that's just the nature of any kind of group format. If you do badly enough in the group, eventually the rest of your matches don't matter. But most teams are going to try their best anyways, just for the sake of pride and kind of proving themselves on the World Cup stage. So I personally don't think it's a huge issue.
The other concern was like the tiebreaker scenario thing.
Yeah, I didn't mind it.
That's I think they could probably optimize tiebreaker scenarios a little better in certain cases, but I
Well,
think going in that felt like such an edge case that it just got overlooked. And I mean, that affected what, one group? I think
There were a
Yeah.
couple.
Or-
Group
I mean, there were only
Group B,
3 groups.
Romania
There
versus
were only
Finland.
3 groups that ever could imagine. Yeah, that was the one I was thinking
Yeah.
of.
Mhm.
And then also Group D, Brazil was first seed out when Philippines had the head-to-head win. So if you use head-to-head as the tertiary tiebreaker, then Philippines gets out instead. Obviously, all of these groups down here never had any ties to break because they were all, clear cut. But yeah, both of those groups had 2 of the groups with win-loss ties had also secondary point differential ties to break, which is crazy. Not honestly did not
Yeah.
expect that many point differential ties to happen during the
Yeah.
group stage.
No, it ended up being super interesting, obviously because there were so many tied point differentials. And I guess kind of the difference between the two is, point differential tiebreakers kind of favors consistency over the group stage. Whereas head to head, if you have a bad match, all of a sudden you could be out of groups off of one bad day. I mean, I guess I'll ask TNG first because you mentioned it originally, but do you sounds like you prefer a head to head over the point
I mean,
tiebreaker?
in situations where the tie can be broken by head to head, I think it should be used.
Well, and we're talking specifically like
Yeah.
not using head to head instead of point differential, because point differential is better than head to head as a
Yeah.
first tiebreaker. As
Yeah.
a
I think so.
second tiebreaker, head to head was not used for point differential. It was
Yeah.
qualifier seeding that was used instead.
Right. I completely forgot about that.
Which is-
So
Yeah.
Romania
Which
got
is-
out
yeah,
over
head-to-head
Finland,
is
for
better.
example,
That was
just
crazy.
because
Yeah.
they're higher qualifier seeding, which, yeah, I think
Yeah,
is.
I don't think qualifier seeding should be affecting group outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, with
just
that
felt like a
context,
weird
I
weird
completely
choice.
agree.
Especially given the way that turned out for Romania with the Taiwan match, like that was it wound up being really close for them anyway. And it was like, I don't know, very
Yeah,
unfortunate.
especially because they're so different, right? Like groups
Right.
is really about that team consistency where the pools are a lot easier, whereas qualifiers are a lot more about individual performances and having, one player be able to pop off can really boost your qualifier performance. So it's very kind of testing very different things. And so as we saw, qualifier seeding doesn't always translate to win. And so, yeah, probably not the best tiebreaker.
Let's move on to some of the bracket stage then and talk about some of those bracket match results. Wanna There we go. I'm gonna have to change up what we're looking at on the sheet here for a second as we move into the bracket stage. But yeah, just starting with, I mean, I think just kind of a general bracket stage overview. We had a lot of really, really good matches throughout this iteration of OWC. To the point, this was like one of my favorite years to watch in general in the past few years. You're looking back at matches like Turkey versus Italy, for example, UK versus New Zealand, Japan and tiebreaker versus Thailand was really, really cool. China over Russia was really a good match during round of 16. Malaysia taking 3 points off of Sweden in round of 16.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
Like,
That was a
Oh my
really
god.
good.
there were some banger matches throughout this tournament. We can actually see pretty much all of the rest of the tournament there now. Yeah, this was a really, really cool year to watch in OWC.
It was so much fun. I mean, yeah, we didn't end up getting that many tiebreakers, which was unfortunate because I think a lot of the tiebreakers are really cool this year. But it wasn't because the matches weren't close, like you mentioned, Dio. It ended up being a lot of matches that ended up being 1 point away from tiebreaker, and the other team managed to close it out, or 6-3s with a lot of maps being 100k points apart. So even when the match scores weren't close, the map scores often were, at least a few of them. So there were a lot of very exciting matches, very exciting storylines as well. Obviously, the New Zealand popping off is kind of the big one that most people are talking about. But even beyond that, a lot of teams had better showings than we expected. China beat Russia in the first round, which I think not a lot of people expected. So that was nice to see. And then, New Zealand ended up taking out China later on in the tournament. So that was a really good showing from them.
Yeah, and speaking of those underdogs, of course, there's Taiwan against Romania. That was probably, at least for me, the upset of the tournament. Maybe not from a numbers perspective because of the Canada 4th place dub, but
Yeah.
from like just seeding differential, that was the biggest with that Taiwan victory over Romania. That was just a match of the tournament for me. Really fun to watch. And I think with the pooling this year, there was a lot of maps with like hybrid skill sets, and that really played well with how close these maps were, just because everything is so variable by comparison to your average tournament because of like how they're able to get these customs coming out.
I feel like this might be something of an unpopular opinion, and I'm sorry in advance, but I feel like this was a tournament that did have some really high highs, but it also had some really low lows, right? You come into semifinals with United States versus Australia 2 versus 3, Poland versus Canada 1 versus 4, and those matches end up being a combined 12-1 map scoreline. Quarterfinals week had the tiebreaker between Romania and Taiwan, and New Zealand upsetting France, but and that was even a 16 versus 15. But other than that, it's like 6-2, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 6-2, 6-1, 6-0. Like, I feel
Brazil,
like
Finland were close.
There you go.
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is like, overall, I think you can look back on the tournament and it's pretty good in general on the average, but the average is drawn super far in either direction by some really good matches and some really kind of disappointing matches compared to what they could have been. Like, we had this insane winners final 7-6, we had this insane losers final 7-6, and then I'm gonna get crucified for this one. I'm sorry, the grand final sucked. It was a 7-1 and then a 7-3. Neither set was interesting at all. The storylines make it, and the storylines were super cool to see. But the match itself was like United States just running over Poland, and then Poland just running back over the United States the other way. I hate to put it that way, but I really was. I was watching at the same time the OWC Grand Final and the Budapest Major Final, right? And it was kind of funny because you had the United States 7-1 Poland, and very soon after you had Vitality. What was it? 13-2 over FaZe. It was just watching two blowouts at the same time. I was so disappointed. I mean, as a United States fan, it was cool, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like the highs really make up for some of the lower lows of this tournament overall, because there were some portions of this tournament that were just really disappointing matches compared to what we anticipated out of them, based on seeding and previous performances and stuff. But I think overall, it's generally going to be thought of as successful because the highs were so high that they will kind of make you forget about the matches and the rounds that were really not so interesting.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Dio.
Yeah, I think for grand finals, it's a little weird because it was two really one-sided matches in either direction. But then the average score difference in each of those matches was 150k, even though there were some maps that were huge outliers, like the hidden one in the first set or Hard Rock 3 in the second set, right? There were some maps that were really one-sided and not close. But for the most part, the maps themselves were pretty close overall, which makes the blowout feel a lot closer. I thought it was still a really good grand finals, even in spite of them being like pretty one-sided matches, just because there were a lot of maps themselves that were really fun to watch. I mean, you watch back 10K on Fremod 2 and tell me you're not having a good time, right? Like there's some really fun maps that are going on. I agree. I hoped they would be closer. I was casting it. Of course, I wanted it to be closer. But
Yeah.
like, for a 7-1 and a 7-3, I think they were pretty good 7-1 and 7-3s. That's my thoughts on it. Because I think the maps themselves were close enough and fun enough to watch that it did still feel pretty fun overall and like pretty good matches, despite how one-sided the score lines were. I kind of want to discuss a little bit about I almost want to talk with some of the map poolers about this, because I felt like the scaling in this tournament and the map poolers themselves, like Dada was saying in feedback, that the scaling did kind of get a little prematurely bumped up in some of the later rounds, like especially semifinals and finals were maybe a little harder than they meant for them to be. And I feel like that played a little bit of a role in how one-sided some of these matches were. Like, on a lower star rating pool, Poland, Canada is probably not 6-1. USA is probably 6-0ing everyone on semifinals weekend because they were just going off in a way that people weren't really expecting. And I mean, they top scored every single map. I think that match is a 6-0 regardless of how you spin it. But I think we probably get closer matches overall if the pool is a little bit easier. I think that also goes for grand finals. Maybe if the whole narrative isn't, can this one godlike player carry their team against people who are able to get consistently 400k and literally never FC anything in the pool, maybe we get some closer matches. I don't know. I think the scaling for 4v4 in OWC has gotten a little high. And that's kind of weird coming from me, because I've done some really high scaling tournaments as well. Perennial, for example. But Perennial is a tournament with a lot less team building limitations. So I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe just discuss. I'm not sure if that's even correct. Like, I don't even know if reducing the star rating or making the pool scale a little bit less would actually result in closer matches. It's just kind of a feeling I have after looking at some of the results and thinking about the way the map pools have scaled this iteration.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of torn on it personally, because it definitely does result in matches where you rely so much more on one player being the carry. And if you're a team that happens to have a player that can do that, all of a sudden your chances at winning go through the roof. We saw Zudi for Canada, obviously Emrek and Malashevsky, and Kriller as well, right? Be those players in the semifinals and the finals. And so I think it could be nice to, like, you probably should have the star rating a little bit lower in at least for the semifinals and maybe the finals, because I do think, you shouldn't necessarily favor teams that have like that one high skill cap player. Obviously, they're always going to be a big, but teams who have kind of more balanced rosters that don't necessarily have that one player, but do have better depth should still be able to stay competitive for the most part, I think. But ultimately on grand finals, personally, I'm of the opinion that I don't really want to see be seeing multiple FCs in grand finals. Personally, like it's cool to see one or two here or there if somebody absolutely pops off, but I generally want to see players having a tough time with the maps. I think it generally makes for close matches. The US-Australia match ended up being incredibly close, and it helps that obviously both teams have multiple players that can perform on those maps. And like you said, the scores were still close in the grand finals. So yeah, I would say personally dial back the scaling a bit for semifinals and maybe finals to a slightly lesser extent. But I think grand finals, you want to be relatively difficult.
Yeah, I agree. My initial thoughts when I saw this Grands Bowl getting played out was like, especially with like Emrek carrying so many maps, I was like, maybe this pool is a bit too hard, where like you only have this one guy just shredding through and like kind of faltering towards the tail end. But I mean, it is the best in the world, and eventually my opinions changed after I saw the proper grands match against Poland, because it's a lot. It really put into perspective the scaling in which that Emmerich performance lied, like, was just beyond my scope at the time. So, in terms of the difficulty there, at first I thought like maybe a little too much, but it turned out okay.
Yeah, just to jump in super quickly, Emmerich definitely pop carried, but like that was a generational pop off.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's an indicator of the pool being too hard.
Hmm.
Did you guys have any other kind of favorite matches throughout the bracket stage before I move on? Obviously, personal favorite, little bias, Canada versus South Korea, getting back to top 4 after there was so much like doubt around them with adding 5 new rookies. And of course, it's always fun to see Zudi pop off on like some crazy aim maps. The other one I had down was just kind of the entirety of the New Zealand run was pretty fun to watch, but specifically their match against China, which they won 6-4, specifically because that was kind of the big prove-it match for them. They had looked good, but had beaten a lot of lower-seeded teams before that. Whereas China was a team that was quite good, top 8, top 9, and they were strong for most of the tournament. They beat Russia in the first round. They went 3-0 in their group pretty decisively, and New Zealand certainly proved themselves in that match.
One of my favorites was Norway versus Brazil, because now Miles owes Norway a round of drinks. I think that's a pretty good match just for that result. I don't know, I had a few like general favorites. Canada versus Germany was one of them. Canada South Korea,
That was
obviously
good.
there's some bias there.
Yeah.
I mean, the winners finals between Poland versus the United States was probably my favorite match to cast. So honestly, it's tough between that and grand finals, because both of those were really good. But I mean, the winners finals was obviously closer, going to tiebreaker. Um, there have been some really cool match. Honestly, for the like, just for the very interesting fact of it being maybe the most dominant match I've ever seen in OWC, like ever, USA Australia in semifinals. Like, okay, it's a clean sweep, but it's also the USA literally top scoring every single map they played on the pool that weekend, which you just don't see it happen that often, man. It's cool. I don't really care that it's 6-0. It's just cool.
I cared a little bit that it was 6-0 because I was expecting a really close match, so I was disappointed. But I understand.
Okay,
where
you
you're
were
coming from.
casting. I understand that. You know.
TNG, you have a favorite
That
aside
match
from the
was
grand finals?
that match was such like a concerning indicator of things to come, though, that USA just hard peaked semifinals. And I don't know if this is going to be something we'll talk about, but we kind of had the discussion of like the big carries from Emmerich and the level Malashevsky was at in grands and stuff. But there was that gave me some thoughts like the weeks after it. Winners final and losers final. No bias at all that I got to cast both of those or anything. But in my extremely humble opinion, were the two best matches of the entire tournament. I mean, obviously, like the storylines of the top 3 teams in this tournament, we've discussed like at length, right? So they had kind of innate interest levels in those two matches, but then they just ended up both living up to the hype. Like Poland, United States, just all the way to tiebreaker, and USA with the comeback from the 6-3 down, which was the fake 6-3, but it's still 6-3 on the scoreboard. It doesn't matter whether that's 1 break point or 2. Like it's still 6-3. Those were just both really, really incredible matches. It was a little unfortunate that USA Australia was such a late match, because I really wanted to be able to hype that adequately and casting it. I didn't really have the opportunity to do that because it was like 1 a.m. But be that as it may, it was still those were still both really, really good matches.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record because I've brought this up 3 times now, but Romania, Taiwan, I mean, the Gao Hao comeback on
Yeah.
Noma 3, unreal. Like, to bring it to tiebreaker, where it was just a pure consistency diff. Like, it was a lot of Romania breaks, Taiwan held strong. It was a comeback, I believe, too. I believe Romania had it 4-1 at one point. Yeah, really good match there. And I also want to shout out Italy-Turkey from the same round, I believe. It was a real clashing of both of these teams that are really good at control skill sets and just really having at it, especially with the storyline of Italy getting no points in that group stage, trying to make it close. Managed to get the 5-3 nod on Turkey's side, but still managed to get their points in an OWC with the closest map being 3K diff, which was that Nomad 3. Really fun match.
Speaking of random earlier stage matches, shout out Spain Chile in Group C. Tiebreaker as like what ended up being a very, very important match in the group, and one of not many tiebreakers in group stage. I think that was one of what 4, and the other 3 were literally all on the last day.
Yeah.
So shout outs to Spain, Chile, also Belgium, Uruguay. No, which was the one that I was casting? I don't even remember. I had a tiebreaker in, it might have been Argentina, Uruguay.
I have scrolled
One
down.
of the tiebreakers in group stage came down to like literally the smallest margin, and it was just like back and forth, just these massive combos.
Argentina, Uruguay.
I think it was Argentina, Uruguay. Yeah, it was a 20K final score margin tiebreaker. So shout out early stage, because the pool is like easy enough to where players you might not see every day get to put up like generational performances and super cool tiebreaker situations.
Yeah, for sure. We have Lighten now joining us. I'll take us to the next segment, Dio, so you can get Lighten on the screen. Welcome, Lighten. Thank you for joining us. But
Hello.
welcome. Pleasure to have you, as always. But kind of next thing I wanted to talk about is the players throughout the tournament that had a chance to shine. Obviously, you have your big names, Emrek, Malashevsky, Kriller, all these players that show up every year. But I wanted to kind of highlight some of the lesser-known players that showed up this year, or just players that had big improvements this year. Did you want to start, Haba?
Yeah,
Any
I can
players
kick
you
this
were
off.
excited about?
I was really surprised by 2 people. Both of them being on the Canadian side. Both Yip and Big Guy Fan. I think Yip made a really phenomenal comeback to OWC this year after being away for, I believe, a year or 2. It really surprised me on those late stage Hard Rock maps. Hard Rock 3 in finals pool was like one of the hardest maps in the tournament, and he was getting consistent 500Ks, as well as Pink Eye Fan. I mean, in a really strong speed roster for Canada this year, one of their main pick skill sets, he was kind of top dog in those speed maps. Even with Xylus on the team, he was getting probably better accuracy on those DT2s, really consistent, and shining star to come through for the future of Canada. I mean, still really young to my knowledge, so good prospects there.
Yeah, aside from the real big names, I think obviously you're going to see a lot of the big names in finals and onwards, so I'm not even going to touch on those.
There's some interesting ones, Dio, in the overall and the group stage performance scores.
Yes, we can go back to. Do I have groups here? No, I have grand finals. Let's see what else I have.
That's okay.
Oh, I do have group stage. Wonderful.
Shout outs Arnold, top scoring group stage performance scores.
Yeah, that's Arnold. We don't usually see Arnold in OWC just because he plays for Peru, and Peru does not have many good players besides Arnold. There you go, number 1 over the weekend there. Skilla second top of the group stage for Sweden. Played really, really well also. Raikaho having a ridiculous number of MVPs for Turkey throughout the tournament as well. I want to shout out I think it was Plox from Uruguay, who was actually almost able to carry them on tiebreaker twice. Uruguay is like, I think, one decent roster upgrade, or like one player getting better from suddenly going from, top 40 into at least top 32, because I think they looked really solid in their group. So I'm actually looking out more for like Uruguay next year than most other teams. I think you can, like, there's been enough publicity around New Zealand, for example, that I don't really want to
Yeah.
talk about New Zealand again
No.
here. We've talked about New Zealand
Gone
enough
under
on Full
time.
Circle, but
We have.
yeah, I'm actually really excited for Uruguay in the future, because I think they were extremely close to pulling off one of the best upsets that we've seen.
Yeah, one player that I wanted to mention, I'm sure Leiden will be happy to hear, is Kamenchik. Obviously, Kamenchik has been a very good player for quite some time, but if you compare Kamenchik's performance from this year to last year, it's actually insane how much Kamenchik improved. But just over the course of a year, has the third best performer in, I think, qualifiers, or sorry, in groups, and the fourth best in round of 16. Had kind of the ninth most MVPs. So MVPs are top scorer in the lobby. And so Kamenchik looked really good. And the other one, obviously, I think a lot of people are becoming more familiar with this player now. But Misha Awa for Hong Kong put up some really insane scores. I think
Number
where did
4
I
in
write it
groups.
down? Yeah, number 4 in groups and tied with Kamenchik for the most MVPs. And it's unfortunate that Hong Kong were struggled a bit this year, so we didn't get to see more Misha Awa, but did look good in the groups and did get to show off in the show match as well.
Yep. Adding on to that, I obviously want to shout out my GOAT from Kazakhstan, Kamenchik and Ternefis, both of these players. I think Ternefis is improving really, really fast, getting a pretty good, basically supporting Kamenchik in a lot of the picks, especially when it comes to gimmick. Also, a few other players that I think are some to look forward to is Rafa Mat and WhatsApp from Portugal. When we had a match with them, when obviously Kazakhstan had a match with them, both WhatsApp and Rafa Mat, they were like a duo that honestly just were destroying a lot of their picks, and a lot of work has been put on their shoulders. And I'm really excited to see Portugal developing their roster more and going forward into the next OWC.
I feel like the Spanish-speaking and adjacent OSU world seems to be getting a lot of flowers here, so I'm just going to tack onto that with Alfiu from Chile,
Yeah.
who has been like on the come up this year in tournaments. I think a lot of people looked at the Chile roster, saw no Matthew, no Suntan, and were like super concerned. But Alfiu played out of his mind basically the entire tournament alongside like intercamping and such. Got Chile, number 10 seed, and they ended up finishing top 12. So really impressive performance from him as somebody who's kind of an unheralded player from that roster. Also, I'm gonna shout out somebody from a top 3 team, which probably sounds weird. And in his actually there could be 2. Ethan Tricks, but everybody knows Ethan Tricks by now. But the other one is, I wanted to say Cloppit from Australia, because Australia had effectively like 5.5 players for this tournament, right? Like Superior just doesn't play. Milo basically doesn't play. Xaver just like doesn't play. And so you had kind of this rotating like 4th, 5th player thing with Paller and Cloppit. And I think really both of them, honestly, ended up pulling their weight in a way that I think was very impressive, especially as really being unknowns to the OWC stage. Everybody knew that Emmerich and Box and Atkins would play well, but they needed a 4th and a 5th and so on. And Cloppit and Paller, I think, both really go under the radar because they're not one of those 3 big names on that team. And they got their team to a top 3. Regardless of how much you want to talk about this team being carried by Emmerich, it still requires at least 4 players. So shout out to those guys for really never being talked about very much, but pulling their weight when needed.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I did really enjoy personally that came from group stage is we just got to see a lot of players showcase that are very strong in tournaments generally, but just don't have the teams or the roster depth to really be able to play in OWC most of the time. So that was really cool to see, looking at players like Rafa, Matt, Def, and and Jack Packs. These players that don't usually qualify finally got their chance and played really well on an individual level.
Yep. A few other shoutouts that I think I wanted to mention is one of the rookies for Russia as well, Vlados. They did have a match against China earlier on in the quarterfinal, in the round of 16 actually, and it was a quarterfinals. Don't really remember that much, but Vlados has been helping them quite a lot, adding a lot into that hidden roster. A lot of people thought that maybe, oh, Russia lost Markroom. Now they're kind of cooked on that skill set, but Vlados was generally a pretty good fill, and the team synergy with them was also really good. Also a few players like Paper Candle, obviously they did really, really well. And something that I also want to shout out, this is obviously an OWC winner, but Milosh, man, seeing Milosh participating throughout the tournament, like in all the tournaments throughout this year, really brought a smile to my face. They did so good on like a number of open rank tournaments, Rest Cup, etc. And obviously in OWC too. Milosh has been putting in numbers, and I'm really happy to see his hard work pay off.
All right. Have we had everyone kind of give their shout outs? I don't remember.
think
I
so,
believe we have, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think we can move on.
I'm gonna give a real quick fade back to the video for a second, which is kind of timely because the one other thing that I wanted to talk about before we move on to kind of anything else is original songs from the map pools. We had some that were really ridiculous, and I think those took a lot of the spotlight for this year's originals, which, I mean, that's obvious. They're going to do that, right? You look at stuff like the, ICDD coming out of hiatus, for example. But one thing I noticed this year is there was a lot fewer originals in general than in previous years, but they seem to land a lot better. And that's something that I think is really good for OWC, is doing just a few of them, making sure they land, putting in big effort and getting, sets ranked for everything, right? And having every single one of them feel really special. Like the Hard Rock 2 from Group Stage, for example. I think that was even kind of overshadowed by this Ebimeo original in Group Stage, but that was from a different World Cup, not from the OWC World Cup this year. There was only one actual original from round of 16 as well. It was just Paling, and of course that landed really, really well. There was the Nomad 4 in quarterfinals from MetaHuman Boy, Illustrious Drifters, with the Aurora emotes getting added to chat and everything, which obviously helps a lot with it landing.
Goated.
Side by Side, I believe, was an original from another World Cup as well. Was not from
Catch, yeah.
Yeah, it was not from this World Cup. On Seeking You was from the China LAN this year.
Osu.
Osu. Fremont 4 that year was also from, actually that's a Lotus or Locust.
Yeah, it was a
Locust
Locust
original.
Focus.
And then it was just the tiebreaker in Nomad 4 in quarterfinals, right? You have 5 original tracks technically here, but only 2 of them are OWC originals for this pool. And that was something that was really cool.
Can we get a way of distinguishing actual originals versus reused originals?
Yeah,
You just
Yeah, we're just-
remember them usually.
there you go.
So,
I mean, we have to, right? Like, there is no way of distinguishing because on the sheet it looks the
Yeah.
exact same.
Well,
These
no, the
ones
way you
are all
distinguish is
actual
you
originals.
click on the maps and check the actual map on the
Yeah.
OC website, and it tells you. But it's a whole lot of effort.
I know, right?
But no, like overall, I think that's kind of the right philosophy. Like you said, a lot of originals landed because they put so much focus into making the few originals, be really, really high quality instead of trying to put a bunch of originals into the pool. I think that's generally the right philosophy to go with, quality over quantity. And I think it really paid off, and hopefully we get similar next year. I'm really happy we did get to see the kind of tiebreakers played naturally as well. At least the grand finals one. I don't think we got one in finals.
We did winners finals.
We did,
literal
okay.
winners final.
Oh, you're so right.
The
I
winners
forgot
finals.
about that.
the one.
Yeah.
The one, the only.
What were you guys' favorites from this year? Personally, I liked
Yeah.
the ICDD one. Besides ICDD or Gumbarlza,
T-Pazolite,
because I
yeah.
think
I was gonna
most
say
of-
Gabarzo, dude.
I
That
think
song's
most
such
of
a banger.
us, most
That one is
people
so
are gonna have
good.
one of those two songs as their
Yeah.
favorites. Don't pick the boring answer. Which one's your favorite?
Millie.
Okay.
You
Can
gotta
I
be
go
Millie.
first?
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to shout out Side to Scene for doing an amazing job with pushing the customs into the ranked section. Side to Scene has been doing a really fantastic job when it comes to like getting the BNs, getting the GDs, getting the mods for all of these originals, and he's like one of the main reasons why a lot of these originals are ranked already or like in qualified. Regarding the favorite originals, I mean, I'm obviously going to be biased because I had a few GDs on them. One of them is the Millie one, mapped by Vetoed, the song named Peach Pit and Cyanide. I'm very excited. I was very excited to see Millie making an original. I think a lot of people were surprised by that as well. Another one was from Marblade Butcher. I just really like the, excuse me, just really like the genre that Marmalade Butcher does. But yeah, I think just a lot of really good job on those originals when it comes to the music, to the song.
Yeah, I think my favorite by far, I mean, I think it's a very common opinion, was the finals tiebreaker, just because I'm a huge T-Pazolite enjoyer. But generally, like, I mean, I thought Paladin was good as well, just because I think the style of map is really fun. I like those more gimmicky maps. I think they're a lot of fun to watch, so I enjoyed that one as well. And I did want to ask before we go into the interviews, if anybody had kind of more in-depth thoughts on the grand finals matchups. We kind of did a brief summary of the grand finals matches earlier in the episode, but yeah, interested to hear kind of more detailed thoughts. Personally, something T1G touched on earlier that I thought was interesting was that roster construction from Australia. Like you mentioned, they had two players that basically didn't play for the entirety of the tournament. They played maybe like one or two maps each. And then Xavier, kind of the third player, played more maps, at least in the early stages, but not much beyond that. And they do have like a very strong core three. So that's not necessarily the end of the world for them. But I'm curious if we see them take a different direction with roster building next year, because it feels like in the 2024 run, they had they relied on their depth a lot more, which is just not the case this year.
One of the
They need
I will say one of the
Chef.
things from Australia, and I'll be quick about this, is they just didn't have that many people try out. Like genuinely, they just did not have that many people try out. That's part
I
of the reason
see,
why the
okay.
roster looked like it did.
They need Chef on the tournament arc. They need Sio and or JGLF and or Zentex.
Dio
Some
didn't try out.
Yeah,
Zentex
Sio
didn't try out, right? Like
Yeah.
that's part of the
Uh,
reason they had these swaps is they just
It's
had people from last year that didn't come back.
I'm curious what happens going
Yeah, I don't know.
into next year after getting third on tiebreaker in back-to-back years and third the year before that 2023. What happened in 2023? I don't remember.
They were third.
But they got third. I just don't remember what like the match score was.
7-1.
Oh, that was the one that wasn't close.
Yes, that was the first year. They were not close.
But yeah, but I want to see what happens next year with them having gotten third 3 years in a row and having come super, super close. Like last year, they were up the infamous 4-1. This year, they were up 4-1 and 6-3. And I think if they'd had just a little tiny bit more roster depth, and if Emmerich hadn't run out of tapping stamina, they might have been in grands, right? Like there were the margins have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. So I'm wondering if they get some of these players maybe take some motivation from that and really like try hard over the next 8-10 months until they have tryouts and select the team for 2026.
Yeah, so.
And you get like actual competition for the roster instead of having people who unfortunately just don't end up playing.
Yeah, personally for Australia, I'm interested. I'm assuming you have the list. Did you know if Treyarch tried out?
I don't. I don't even have the player list actually.
I don't.
Oh wow. Okay. But like
think...
Treyarch is an Australia player like with insane gimmick potential that I think they could really rely on. Pallard was doing his best during those earlier stages, but seemed to be a little outscaled by the tail end, and that could be a big boon to them. Just like there's players on the backlog. I know JGLF also working on the all-round game, so won't be just a reading specialist in the future potentially. I don't know. Australia has solid prospects on the back end, to my knowledge.
I think Chef tried to play like tournaments a little bit and decided instantly that he hated them, but they just need to fix that. They just need to fix that.
There you
Like, I don't
go.
know, dude
They
has
gotta kidnap Chef.
insane potential. Dude has insane potential. You just need to get him on his tourney arc somehow. I understand though how hard it is to try to become a tournament player in that region because of the time zones and stuff. Like all you can really play without it being a pain in the ass is like regional
or
tournaments.
1v1s, and then you can force people to schedule around you. But
what 1v1s? What 1v1s?
yeah, that's hey, I host 1v1s. Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I mean, I made a whole 40-minute recap video. I've yapped enough
Yes,
about
you
grand
did.
finals. It was. I'm curious more about the future for Australia. The future for Germany, I think, is really interesting to talk about for me, because this is the first year in like 8 years or something that they've been not. I have the sheet up. I can just say. They have been top 4 every year since 2018. So this is the first year in 8 iterations that they were not top 4. Now, granted, they are still top 6 for this is now the 12th iteration in a row. So it's not like they have fallen off significantly, right? But I do think it's interesting to think like, okay, how can they build a team to compete with the top 4 from this year? I think is the question, right?
That is a good
Yeah.
question. I think when it comes to the roster building, obviously we did think of
Lighten,
Germany
I'm
as
gonna
a
cut you
obvious
off.
top
You are
four.
so robotic. I'm sorry.
Okay, okay.
It's cooked, bro.
I'll take the reins. I think my thoughts on this Germany roster is like Kriller just needed backup on the weird stuff. Like Kriller was good on every map. He did his job. They have a phenomenal mechanics roster as advertised. Fled, it was a really big improvement year over year. I knew him mostly as a speed fill in previous years, but he kind of filled every map to a really solid degree this year in a way I wasn't expecting. But they have gimmick players that tried out that did really well that were just kind of slight snubbed. Looking at players like Stella Sue or a Lion. I think I'm still on that hill where like they could have you had that extra tech help, but unfortunately this roster was more designed for the skill cap of a grand final stage and did not pan out that way with the varied skill sets.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really impressive they managed to top 4 for so long, because it feels like over the last few years they've kind of lost a lot of their late stage carries that made them so good. You know, Dustus and Umbre back in 2021, and then this year they lost White Cat as well. But obviously, with a player as good as Kriller, they're always going to be up there, and they have some decent depth as well. I think all it's going to take for them to get back is just one more, you know, a second carry player, essentially. You don't necessarily need another player. Sorry, you don't necessarily need another Kriller, but you need somebody who can, you know, be that kind of secondary support, like a mini Malashevsky and Milos type duo. So I think if they can find one more of those, they're easily back in top 4, and you know, potentially they can fight for top 3 again. But I think, unless anything else, anyone has anything else to add, we can.
Is my mic
I'm getting
better
cut
for
off,
me
bro.
to
Oh my
add
God.
something?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
TMG,
go
right.
ahead and finish your previous thought, and then.
All right, yeah. So basically, back when the tournament was about to start, we all thought that Germany's probably like a really, really solid top 4 team, but sadly, it did not happen. As we did see from the Canada match. In general, I think when they had a match against Canada, when they played against Canada, there was like a notable skill set issues with some of them, which I think might have been the reason why they lost to Canada. Obviously, Canada also played out of their minds, so you got to shout out Canadian performance there. But that being said, a lot of people did mention someone like Lion, someone like Stella potentially being on the team. So I think going forward, I think Germany might need to go a little more in depth when it comes to the skill sets, so that the issues like that against Canada would not be present anymore.
Bro, 7 mechanics players. 7 mechanics players. No, I think So here's the take I have on Germany. They have the exact opposite problem that the United States did this year. Germany has one of the best players in the tournament, but without adequate roster depth to make it worth it. The United States has the best depth in the tournament, but without a true carry. Like,
Yeah.
just put Kriller on the United States, and now the United States wins.
You could say that about a lot of like any top 3 team though. Add Kriller, and all of a sudden they win easily.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
you
I
know,
don't. I
if
mean, we're
you
talking top 3 is interesting though, because right, like Australia has the problems we've already discussed, where they have like Emmerich Box and Atkins and whatever, and then there's like missing depth because nobody wanted to play this year apparently. Poland obviously won the whole thing. You can't really argue too much about their roster construction. I think they pretty much made the best roster they could have.
yeah.
But the problem that the United States, if we're going just at top 3, that if you can say, problem getting top 2 for the 11th year in a row, but I don't have an Emmerich, they don't have a Malashevsky, and they need to figure out who that's going to be.
According to Twitch
I don't
chat, it
know.
was Fat Chud. Don't know who that is, but
Yes, of course.
the
either.
infamous.
I mean, there you go. If any OWC players are watching, just add a Malashevsky to your team, and your chance to win an OWC will go up dramatically. It's
That's
that
true.
easy.
They just need Board Yes. I need to see what Board Yes is capable of in tournaments, dude. I need air to breathe.
That would be fun.
All right, I think that's going to be it for us for the tournament retrospective portion. So we're going to say goodbye to Hubba and Lighten. Thanks very much for coming on. And we are going to welcome on Rafis and Wilchq to Full Circle. How's it going, guys?
We're pretty much fine, I guess.
Yeah, good as well. Chilling. It's Saturday, Need some of that weekend chill. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. We've just been yapping about random OWC stuff for an hour, so
Yeah,
it's
I
been
agree on the
good.
weekend chill. I've had
Yeah.
zero chill.
Dio's had a
all
week.
long.
Dio's
I'm
had
so
a
happy
week.
It's the weekend.
Man, there's no weekend chill for me. I had to write an exam this morning, but I'm done with my exam, so I am
No.
free now.
Let's hope it went well.
I think it went relatively well, but no, I appreciate you guys coming on. Congrats on the OWC win, of course. That's absolutely massive. I kind of wanted to first start by asking Wilchq. Let me just pull up my notes here. 1 second. Yeah, so last time you played an OWC was 2017, back when Poland last won the World Cup. Can you kind of talk a bit about your current role with the team since then?
So my current role in the team is not really direct. I would call it rather indirect, basically, because I wasn't really caring about what the team does, basically not caring about the strategy, about what they play, how they prepare to the matches. So I wasn't doing anything that much for the team. My role was currently doing the Polish broadcast for the OWC, and also caring about the Polish podcast, which we were doing for many years right now. And my role was basically, I always wanted to influence the team in a way where people from the audience, for example, root for our players more. So I wanted to care about mentality, about the stuff surrounding OWC. And the podcasts were pretty much for it, basically. We were caring about showing the perspective. We were basically invited by Malashevsky to the team's Discord. So we basically could see all the strategies, all that they were talking, motivating each other. So we saw all that things going in the team, and we could actually share this perspective to our Polish viewers. So that was basically my role. And I feel like we did actually influence it a little bit, considering that after Poland won their OWC this year, Malashevsky actually messaged us about how he appreciated the idea, how he appreciated the podcast, and how it actually helped them to go to OWC with a good mentality.
That rocks,
That-
actually. That's so cool.
That is so cool. I like having access to teams like internal strategy would be like dream come true. With that access, is there anything that like surprised you about either the strategy or the team environment that you weren't necessarily expecting?
Not really. The strategy was really good by Malishevsky, and I actually mentioned as well on the podcast that he was probably the best captain we ever had in OWC, because he pretty much had all the traits of the previous captains, all the good traits. I mean, he was actually charismatic. He had the good strategy. He was smart, and he wasn't afraid of actually putting this strategy into process. And he pretty much took all these good sides without downsides. Like, for example, me, I had no charisma back then in 2017, and he had all that in this year.
Man, so somewhat unrelated, but I was just looking at the roster history because you mentioned Malashevsky is the was the best captain. I was like Rafis, but it's crazy that Rafis has played 10 years of OWC and has never been the captain. But to kind of get into the actual match a bit, do you want to talk about what your team preparation looked like leading up to the matches? Are there any specific strategies you had in mind going into the match aside from just picking best map?
Yeah, I mean, okay. So first of all, like you said, I've played for 10 years and I've been a captain. I've got offered this role multiple times, but I rejected it
I
every
figured.
single time because I just, okay, to be honest, I just can't be asked with like all the scheduling and all the like kind of admin stuff that you do when you're a captain,
Respect,
especially
respect,
for
respect.
OWC. So I'd rather have someone else do that for me, so I can just chill when it comes to that. But when it comes to strategy, I think that was like the best we've been ever prepared to play tournaments. Even though some people filled their scores like later on, it didn't matter at all. But we had like everything prepared before the match. We had all the lineups for each map, and like no matter what, we would send that lineup. No big changes unless someone was really feeling bad on a specific map. And yeah, as Wilchq said, like when it comes to the captains of Polish OWC, Malishevsky is the best. He had all the good traits. He had the best pick strategy. He knew what to pick and what to not pick because he can analyze this kind of team behaviors based on his previous tournament experience, I assume. And he's like the most experienced tournament player we have right now and the most decorated tournament player we have. And mentality-wise, we were basically feeling done after beating US in finals. We were like, okay, we have top 3 anyways. We have top 3 anyways. Wait, actually, was it US? No, it was Canada. It was Canada. After we beat Canada, we were basically like happy and content with whatever we achieved. We did our thing. We're top 3. We can relax now, and then whatever happens, happens. That was the mindset we went into the US finals match, and it worked out pretty well. Even though it was quite nervous at the times, up to the tiebreaker, it was great. But overall mentality improved a lot compared to the previous years, I would say, in our team.
That's neat. I didn't actually write this one down, but it reminded me because I think we asked Sudi about this too. So I'm curious if it's any different for you guys. But you mentioned kind of pick strategy and rosters. How much do you value, scores on a team sheet versus, a specific player playing really well in a day and maybe putting them in over somebody who has a better average score?
We value those pretty much. They're set in stone when we go in, and of course someone can have a worse day. We just take it as it goes, but we prioritize the team sheet in general. And in the team sheet, every one of us puts the basically slightly lower than possible score, just to not be too bad in the mental after they go into the map and they set a score below their average that they put in. So we try to like not be too positive in the team sheet. I don't think Malishevsky had a single like FC written in his sheet through the entire tournament.
Wow.
It was always around 600k, even on early stages.
That's really funny, actually. And
we don't want to put like extra pressure and expectations, when going into the map, and that helps a lot.
That's a really interesting way to reduce pressure actually, because I've not heard anyone talk about that before. But I kind of segue somewhat into you mentioned the team atmosphere going into the finals after the win against Canada. Obviously, the first match started out pretty rough for you guys. You went down 5-1 to start, and eventually lost it 7-1. Kind of this is a two-part question, I guess. Were there any discussions about using your last pick in that first match, which ended up being Nomad 3, I think, kind of tactically for more information rather than just trying to, get a point in a match that's probably already lost? And then the second part of that question is, what was the team mentality like going into that second match, and how did you guys kind of stay positive after losing the first one?
Yeah, I mean, the first match started pretty rough, but our general mentality was like quite calm. The first match was the more nervous type of match, I would say. We were just picking maps, like checking if it's testing the limits, kind of. We would say we would not ban DT3. We would let it roll, and well, that lost us the match because window life popped off. But we
yes,
had
he did.
and then they also banned DT1 in the first match and changed their strategy as well. But we were like, we're playing. Our strategy was just play the best you can at the moment, and we'll see what's gonna happen. And well, 7-1, 1-7 happened. We picked the number 3 with a thought that this is the map we're gonna break through. But Pez put up a carrying performance in that first match, and he was really, really good in the grand finals. I would not expect him to like perform on that like carry level right there. And going to second match, it feels like all the pressure, all the nerves just went away. Everyone got so calm and played out of their minds. I don't know. You could think that it's you should build some more pressure. Yeah, if we do it again, we're gonna lose the tournament. But no, we were calmest ever. Like, we haven't been that calm in OWC as in the second match in grand finals, and everyone in the team was just chilling and playing like they would play on single player most of the time.
Yeah,
I was kind of wondering about that because like you said, in that first set, you looked like a different team in the second set, right? Like, you've had some really, really ridiculous scores. Aside from the hidden one in the first
that was
set.
crazy.
With
3 million.
Malak, aside from that, it felt like USA had kind of already de-stressed or gotten rid of their nerves from the losers bracket finals, and Poland had yet to do that in the first set. So I was wondering about that.
Yeah, and we in the second match we made a leverage out of the picks that were close. Like, for example, Freewood 1. And then we also, our strategy was like, okay, so Boshiman is probably shitting his pants right now. Let's pick against him. And then we picked the Fremont 1, and then he shut the bed compared to the first match. And then it felt like the nerves from our team all transferred into Boshiman, so he could not one person carry this gimmick picks. And that was that was part of the tactic on the second match, to just pick against Boshiman, like the reading Nomad 5 free mods, and it worked out. Even though the Night of Nights, I want to highlight here Kosharek, like is insane.
That was
crazy.
He was insane there. Yeah. Anyways, that's what I have to say about this. You can go with the next questions if you want.
I just wanted to say before I answer the next one, I thought the picks were really interesting because I noticed you guys picked a few maps that you had lost by close margins, but you also picked a few maps that hadn't been played at all. I think the Nomad 1 and then the Nomad 5 you mentioned, so I think those ended up being really good picks. This one's more of a question for both of you because the two of you were on the Polish OWC team last time they won OWC 8 years ago in 2017. What kind of differences and similarities have you noticed between the 2017 Polish team and the current one?
Okay, so who
You
starts
can
now?
go. You can go ahead, Wilchq.
I can go. Okay. The
Not
difference
still on the
is
team. Okay.
basically, I feel like right now OWC is way more about strategy. You have different map pools, so you have many skill sets on many other maps. Like you have many jump maps, stream maps, tech maps, speed maps, and you can go so on and so on. While in previous OWCs, I don't feel like map pools were that balanced. You could find some pretty much similar maps in the older map pools. So previously, I feel like OWC wasn't playing about strategy, what other team might struggle on. We were just picking mostly maps that we could play at that time, and we focused mainly on that. While currently in 2025, you have to care about what you can play, but also you have to look at the second team and think about how many carries they have and how much they can influence basically the scoreline of the match.
Yeah, it's much different to how it was in 2017. The skill cap went massively up compared to that. Like the maps, if you look at the map pool for Grand Finals 2017 and you compare it with like now, it's probably around quarterfinals, maybe round of 16 sometimes when it comes to the difficulty. Except few maps, I guess. But yeah, it has changed a lot, and strategy-wise as well. You can't just like blind pick whatever you feel like and count on the win. You have to think more about the possible outcomes of the specific maps. And yeah, it's much different. But when it comes to the team atmosphere as well, it feels more organized compared to what we had in 2017. And I think Wilchq can agree that we were just picking based on the feeling, and also based on some like considering there was a fail mechanic.
Yeah,
that
that's
saved our ass so much. Yeah, it's different. That's all I can say about it, really. Different kind of tournament.
I'm kind of curious, like branching off of that, and this goes to both of you guys as well. Again, as two players who've been around OWC for so long, you've been through changes in the tournament format. You've been through changes in the map pooling metas. You've been through like the rise of more original tracks, custom songs, and stuff like that. I would be interested as well in both of your guys's like what your favorite and least favorite changes are that have kind of affected the World Cups over the years. Obviously, Rafis from a still playing perspective, but also Wilchq for a spectator perspective and former player perspective.
From a spectator's, okay, you can start.
Yeah, you start.
Okay, I start. From a spectator's perspective, I definitely enjoyed the change that was in this year's World Cup, which is the group stage, which was also changed into two phases of group stage, kind of the better teams and the worst teams in the qualifiers. And it actually improved the quality of the matches in the beginning of the tournament, where we had many more close setups where teams could actually compete. And we had some sensations like Peru, for example, which was seed 39, and they wouldn't even compete in OWC back in the previous years. And they could actually manage to snatch few wins in this year and actually manage to play more matches. So I definitely enjoyed that change in the OWC World Cup. And from other changes, I also played OWC World Cup many years ago in 2014. That was my first OWC. So that was also the OWC with the Score V1. So the Score V2 change was basically the second change. I think it was crucial for OWC to become way better tournament because it basically was more fair, was more towards accuracy, and is pretty much the best score system that we probably can have. I don't think that, personally, obviously, that laser scoring is that much better. I feel like Score V2 is almost perfect, and I'm pretty much gonna stand by that, and I'm gonna die on that hill.
Yeah, and for me, the changes. Okay, so I also start with the group stage. So first of all, coming from a player that failed to get out of group stage in 2018, I was so happy. I was so happy that they are gone. I was so happy that they are gone because how does that compare? You get like the best teams possible that have the winning kind of potential, and then you make them play 5-star maps against teams that can play the same kind of skill cap comfortably. It doesn't really show that much, but this year's group stage comeback was one of my favorite things because it was structured better. You had this like top 8 qualifiers, not having to participate in them, so you could actually, the qualifiers made more sense, and you can just skip them, and it's also 2 weeks off the tournament, so that's also really nice. Very important for Polish team, I would say, that we get to play later. And what else? Okay, from the changes, Score V2. Best you could do really about scoring, because Score V1 was too carry dependent. Now we can still carry, but it's much harder. And custom maps. I had mixed feelings about them at first. They were not as high quality, but with the most recent years, they are actually so good. And the songs customs, like one of the best songs on OWC, like this year popped off completely when it comes to the songs. And I'm not speaking only about OWC, I'm speaking about other game modes as well, like Mania and Catch. Like you guys like they produced like some good content now for the game. And like when I was in Korea earlier this year, I went to the arcade. And it's kind of, you get a Stunlock feeling when you open Tunidum, you see Camellia Uparts, and under it's written OWC, that this song comes from OWC, you know?
Yeah.
It's OWC original. It's like I could not think that it's possible, like back in like 2015, 16, that we would have like original songs made specifically for the tournaments. And for the negative thing, maybe not for every match, but like, in the finals, grand finals, I missed my warm-ups. I missed my warm-up picks. It's there is so much content potential, but also I guess it's bad for moderation. I don't know. Someone can slip up some bad things into the official broadcast, and
Man, we gotta chill out. We gotta chill out. Polish people miss warm-ups. That was the best thing in OWC.
Yeah.
We miss
our
I don't
warm-ups.
miss warm-ups. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
same.
I don't miss the
Yeah.
warm-ups.
You're
Like, I
talking to
get
like
it,
three of
but-
you're talking to three of the biggest warm-up haters in the game.
Yeah.
But
No, it's good to have the
I
perspective.
do like them as a player. I get where you're coming from. As a caster,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and as a player, I love them.
Yeah,
As a
I mean,
caster,
what
having to
are
talk
you
over 10
gonna-
minutes of warm-ups? Like, what are
Yeah.
you talking about? There's nothing.
Yeah, what are you gonna talk about in a broadcast? But
okay, honestly,
especially with some random map, I don't know.
in finals and grand
Yeah.
finals, though, I can kind of get behind it because it just gives you more time
Yeah.
to talk about like the teams and how they've gone through the tournament so far, right? In group stage, okay, maybe don't do warm-ups in group stage, but honestly, in late stage,
Yeah,
I can
no.
kind of get behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. 'Cause there's a
Yeah,
lot more
there is a
talk
middle
about late
ground. There is a
stages.
middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There is a
for
middle
sure.
ground.
Like do not do it for all the matches, because then you would have this year group stage, like there's so many matches to cast.
Yeah.
So like that would be a scheduling hell for the stream. But like finals, grand finals, maybe something. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Definitely an idea. Actually, I wanted to follow up on something you mentioned earlier, Rafis, about the having the 2-week break off. It seems like a lot of players enjoyed having those kind of 2 extra weeks to just watch the tournament, not have to worry about playing. But I think a few of the viewers missed watching their teams play. I take it you enjoyed the break, but did you kind of miss playing those first 2 weeks at all? Do you think it'd be interesting to have like a show match for the top teams in those first couple of weeks, or would you prefer to just have the time off to enjoy watching?
For me, I don't know. I can't speak for every player, but for me, I really enjoy like having this, this 2 weeks to just watch and enjoy the OWC without having to play it. Because it's a different thing when you can just sit back, relax, and not think about your upcoming match, and you can just watch the matches and watch like some crazy matchups, how they go in, like France getting points against US, but that was not in group stage anyways. But you know what I mean. Like this kind of matches that
Yeah.
are maybe not too clear in the outcome.
And also commentate, because Rafis was commentating as well during the group stages.
Oh yeah,
Oh, nice.
and I enjoy doing that.
Oh,
So
Yeah, that is fun for sure. It was cool to get some of the players on the official broadcast too to be guest casters, which obviously normally wouldn't be possible. So that was nice for sure. Kind of move on to a different question. I don't know how much you can speak. I don't know how involved you are with the roster decisions, but can you talk at all about the kind of discussions you had about roster construction going into the tournament, and has your strategy around roster building changed over the years?
in the team, I was not really a part of it. We have a tryouts every year, like all the bigger countries with more good players have, and we usually strategize around having like a balanced team, so we don't take like highest BP players of all time in Poland or something. We take people like Have, for example, so we have a reading person.
Beast.
We take we try to have it optimal, so we have like strong core that can play most of the maps, and then the fill players for speed, for reading, for hard rock. To think that Koszarek was player like that, and then he turned out to be one of the MVPs for Poland. Like, if not him, we would probably not win that cup. He FC'd the DT3 in qualifiers that gave us #1 seed. And then in the grand finals, like, he just did some miracle. And we just try to keep it balanced,
Yeah, I mean, clearly it worked out well. So good call there. A question for Have. Do you miss playing OWC at all? Or are you
For
enjoying
not-
your
Or for
Have.
Wilchq.
or Wilchq? Sorry, yeah, I was
I
thinking
was just
about
listening and I was like,
Why
what?
not have on the brain?
I do.
I mean, I know that I'm kind of a consolation prize guest since no one from the team actually wanted to participate. But yeah, I mean. So what was the question again? Sorry.
Oh yeah. The question was, do you miss playing OWC at all? Or are you enjoying your time doing commentary and kind of a backstage role?
I kind of missed that in 2018 and 2019, definitely, because I was still able to perform on a level which would allow me to play in OWC. So that was the time where I actually missed it, especially in 2018 when Poland actually got out in group stages. So I felt like maybe it's my fault somehow. I don't know. But then I kind of got over it. I found my place in the commentary and podcasts, and I feel like that's a place for me. I am not getting that nervous anymore, like in the OWC matches. So I am just sitting calmly in my silent corner, not caring about the OWC, playing, I don't know, fucking Genshin Impact, and enjoying life.
Doing UMA pulls during the match instead of wondering what
yeah.
you'll roll on the maps themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. We gotta steal you for a full circle episode one day.
Oh, there we go.
But I have one more
sure.
question. Let's go. I had one more question for Rafis. So you're the only remaining Polish player from the 2017 roster, and you've now played 10 years in OWC after this year. What helps you stay motivated after playing for so many years?
I know, I just like the game, and I just like the atmosphere we have whenever we
Very based.
play OWC. It's like really nice weeks together with the teammates. We play different games as well together, so it's nice. I don't know, it's just a team atmosphere, and like watching map pool reveals together, all that stuff. Like, it just keeps me going, and the community, and especially Wilchq's role as well. That he's having this like Polish podcast. Like, I enjoy that. And it makes me motivated. It just makes me motivated. And, even though maybe I'm not like the strongest performer of the team, it's not always the case. Like, I'm here to fill in speed and like play the speed picks that people are not comfortable on. Or in the grand finals when they took me into DT1 that I played only once or twice.
Oh, jeez.
But no one else wanted to do it. And I just said, okay, I'll tank it. It's fine. You guys carry, I'll tank it. And it worked out. Because I could probably get a much better score on that, but I was not practicing that kind of skill. So I was just playing speed maps.
I mean, saving the
to
team
get
mental.
ready.
Speed Uncle Rafis is here to save the day. Worry not.
I'm here. I'm here to play Speed. You know, in the age of 47 or something. But
OWC
Is that gif of the
2045
karate guy,
Rafis
Bubbleman in
Villa.
OWC 2070?
yeah.
Still playing Speed?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. Like I know that if I want to play next year, I need to play more skill cap. I need to push my skill cap in other stuff because it's I've been focused only on speed and well, Wu-Ting destroyed the speed in OC.
That's
Wooting
kind of true.
has had
the
unseeable
effect of-
ramifications in OC.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, now
Like,
we're getting
imagine-
like 300
imagine the
BPM
tournaments.
OWC.
Yeah, imagine the tournaments if no Wu-Ting.
Speed might
Yeah,
still
would
be
we- would we
balanced.
have-
I don't know.
No mod
Like,
5 again.
Yeah, would we get 300 BPM in OWC if not for
no,
Wooting?
no, we would not.
Definitely not.
Our pools would look
No.
so completely different, actually.
They
Yeah.
would. Well, those were all the questions I had. I don't know, Dio2NG, if you had any final questions. I'll let you ask. I'll be back in like 30 seconds.
I bet Dio
I got
does.
kind of a closing question.
Yeah,
if you want to
yeah,
have
go for it.
anything first.
No, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, my one closing question. So this is now the third time that the USA has lost in like the last 12 years, right? Obviously the first time in 2017, the second time in 2024, third time this year. The two previous times they've lost, the winner from the last year has had kind of a slight implosion, either with Poland having the group stage incident in 2018 or South Korea this year. I mean, they still played well, of course, but they lost a lot of their best players from last year and so went out in sixth. Is Poland expecting to kind of keep this same roster and continue to try to win again next year? Because it seemed like there's maybe a curse developing for teams that win against the United States.
Wait, can I start?
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that we already are used to the fact that we are winning OWC every 8 years. So just be prepared for 2033. You know, let's go.
Rafis will still be playing.
Rafis still filling speed, gray-haired kids.
Oh my
Doesn't
gosh.
matter.
Yeah, man, of course. Yeah, but that seems like a pattern for sure. That it happens.
I hope
But
it's not.
It's too early for me to say. Like, we don't know. We have a bunch of players we have our eyes locked into because they are actually like getting really good. Like, let me tell you, the invest list, invest in Eka, is a Polish guy. He did 800k on Grand Final Hard Rock 2 in his locals, and he created his account in 2022. Just saying.
Oh my.
How do you spell this name?
Kids these days, bro.
Yeah,
Rebecca?
is this like the
It's
2033
ACCA.
Malashevsky?
Yeah, ECCA. Yeah,
ECCA.
yeah. But just invest in this guy, you know.
Well, let's see the 4-digit World Cup for Eka. Let's see it.
Yeah, actually true.
Yeah.
He's soon, kinda.
Maybe. I don't think they have a set time yet, so but
No,
I'm
it's like
sure.
spring.
No.
Your return of the glory days of Poland D-rankers. Let's go. Where is oh god, what are their names? The two oh my
Yeah.
Ugh.
Also, yeah, Ivaxa, of course, like he's been going away from the high BPM speed and kind of transferring his skill set into more like tournament style maps.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he had
much
even,
can change, and we don't know yet what's gonna happen. We'll see the next year.
I'm
Yeah, it's really
hoping for
hard
it.
to predict. It's really hard to predict what Poland's team will become in the next years. But I definitely can say one more thing. There were words that you said, Dio, in the video that was before the match of the grand finals, which was, I recall, something between the lines of the most decorated player versus the most decorated team, right? Something like that. And basically, Poland this year proved that it's not Malishevsky and friends anymore. It's just Poland. It's basically entire team that is currently fighting for the titles, and that basically works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys had a lot of players putting up some really good scores in grand finals. That's for sure.
There the roster depth, I mean, all tournament really was super impressive. Like Kozierek, obviously, Sherry Tori, and Have as well. Like, and it was like not just one of them, right? Like it was any one of them on a given week could be like the third best player for Poland, which is good to see.
Yep, the most influential flag change in OWC history, I would say. You know?
Back-to-back years, bro. We get Hyuk
Okay,
going to
okay,
South
listen.
Korea, and then we get
Yeah.
Sherry Tori going to Poland.
Yeah,
Yeah, Hyuk going to
exactly.
South Korea. That's a pretty big one too.
That one is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
big
Hyuk
one.
as well. That's true. That's true. And when it comes to the US team, like they just need the one person carry again.
Yeah.
One more
Yeah.
ultimate carry. Because they are a really strong team. There is just not a person that's gonna like go in and put up like ridiculous scores only, like it was previously with Vaxe and Utami and Rectigon as well. Rectigon's this kind of player, but
Window Life, if
Yeah.
he keeps improving, he's
Yeah.
got the like raw mechanical potential, right, for the skill cap on
it's
these
o-
pools.
Oh, yeah,
It's
he
okay,
does.
guys. Henry's flag changing the USA next year. Copium.
Surely.
Well, didn't
then
he
we'll play
announce that
test
he wants
anyways.
to stay in the
Yeah.
playtesting?
He
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
He did. I heard a couple people talking about him flag changing, but then he also said he wanted to stay on the map pooling team. So like, whatever, man.
But I mean, if you get a chance to win OWC, then maybe you go back. Who knows?
They somehow got to beat Poland next year. Though. This is gonna have
True.
like all-time
Impossible.
motivation. I have
I
to
know.
think like y'all are gonna carry this over from this year, I'm sure, and like just continue to grow.
I do
That
hope so.
seems
It's
like
way more
the-
interesting to watch grand finals when it's not just and everyone
USA
loses to
win?
USA again. Great,
Yep.
fun stuff, guys.
It's good. And yeah, the more matches, the better. The group stage, cherry on top of this tournament.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
This was a fun year.
And I just want to say one more thing. Like, holy shit, New Zealand, you know?
Yeah.
My
That
goats.
was crazy.
Yes.
My goats. My favorite team of this
Absolute goats.
OWC.
Yeah, we've been flying the New Zealand flag on this podcast for several weeks now. We're in
Oh,
love.
yes.
So
They're,
it's-
like,
it's awesome
all
to
we
hear,
talk
like,
about
the
at this
top
point.
players. Yeah.
To the point that earlier on this podcast, I was like, okay, guys, surely we've talked enough about New Zealand. We can talk
Yeah.
about some other teams now.
You can never talk too much about New Zealand.
It
Like,
was good.
imagine if New Zealand had more players, you know? They would be
Yeah.
up there with Australia and Korea and
Yeah.
everyone else. Like,
Yeah.
if Zoomer played this year,
Imagine
Yeah.
if they didn't lose the map against Germany by 7k.
Yeah.
Right.
What would
Ooh,
happen?
scratchy.
What would happen?
And the
Under
crazy
next
part
year,
to
I
me is that
guess.
I had never heard of any of them before this tournament, which is
They
wild.
lost
Maybe I'm just
to-
not paying attention.
yeah, they lost to UK and then something awakened in them, I guess.
They just flipped the switch, man. That was so
Yeah.
sick.
200, you guys had any other questions?
I think we covered it. Yeah, I think we covered everything we wanted to.
Very nice. In that case, thank you guys very much for joining us for the interview. We really appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun talking to you guys. A lot of interesting insight. For everybody else, really quick before we end off the episode, we did want to mention one more time that Full Circle, for all future episodes, will be moving to a new Twitch channel, which is linked in the pinned message. You can use !new in the chat as well. We also have a new Discord channel, and mainly we just want some more control. We've been using the Corsace channel, which we don't have complete control over, so we've been slightly limited. So it'll be nice to have a bit more freedom. But I do want to give a shout out to Cavo especially and the rest of the Corsace kind of organizers for allowing us to keep using their channel even after Corsace has ended. One thing we do want to start thinking about is we are interested in suggestions for future episodes. The only time we're kind of doing regular episodes is